Hello and welcome to Comic Show, starring comics. I'm Mike.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Vincent. And we're going to skip news segment. There's lots of news. Just Google it. We may catch up next week.
Next week's a lighter week, so we could actually probably do a news catch up.
Yeah. So we're going to do some haul segments. I got in. Actually, I guess I wasted a bit of money since we last spoke. I went to a store and got a shitload of dollar bin books. I'm not going to show all those because there are a range of different things. But then I got an IST order. Very excited. I got Speedball, the Masked Marvel.
Nice.
It's a lot thinner than I expected, especially considering before they announced this, I was considering custom binding this stuff. But very happy to have this. That's some nice Steve Ditko. I got Shazam, the World's Mightiest Mortal. Very very sexy underneath as well.
That's pretty cool.
Very also super excited about this book. Probably even more than Speedball. It does not have volume 1 anywhere on the spine. So very disconcerting considering this only collects 18 issues and the series was like 30 issues. We will see. Dan Dio, whatever. Then I have Legends of the Dark Knight, Michael Golden. Also relatively thin volume. This collects a lot of his stories from Batman family. There's some Ragman appearances in here. There's a bunch of Man-Bat stuff as well. And then you get it's like a lot of these legend stories. So collects all their stuff through the eras. So you get a black and white story from Batman Black and White. And then there's a huge cover gallery in the back because DC would often use Michael Golden for covers. Those some 80s tech issues. And then you jump ahead and you've got a showcase cover, which I guess technically counts because Catwoman's on it. And you have a bunch of Nightwing covers, which I guess because they're more modern, they don't have any. They're able to not put any dress on them. And that's basically it. These are, again, the bulk of this, like the stuff that he's known for classically as a Batman artist, is stuff from Batman family, which like isn't really referred to a ton, like by modern readers and critics and stuff like that, and it's barely ever been reprinted elsewhere. So I'm very unfamiliar with this stuff, and I'm excited to read it. Basically, I buy the volumes of this line when they don't ridiculously double dip or anything like that. Actually, underneath, so the other thing is they're constantly changing the design of these books. But underneath, I don't know if it's just a specific one or what. I actually kind of like this design. It's like a very weird, super simplistic graphic design thing. And just the new DC logo on the back.
That's kind of how the way the Brayfocal Volume 2 is set up.
And then just to stack up my order, and also because again with these volumes you never know when they're going to go out of print. So I picked up Tales of the Batman by Jerry Conway Volume 1, and excited to get into this as well. This first volume is a little uneven because it starts out with a bunch of like scattered things he did before it gets into his actual like complete like run on Batman, and this is post-crisis, the same design motifs. This is a pre-crisis, like 80, like once it gets into his actual run, it's probably like 1981 or something. And there's 3 volumes of it, and I'm very excited to read this stuff because again, Batman, everyone knows plenty of post-crisis stuff, obviously. Everyone always talks about the Carmine Infantino Silver Age like overhaul. Everyone always talks about the 70s Engelhart Rogers stuff, and then or whatever that was, and the 70s O'Neill and Adams stuff, and then there's not a lot of talk about the immediate pre-crisis stuff, which is an era that interests me for DC. So that's what I picked up. Do you guys have any Hall stuff you want to spotlight?
Mike, did you have anything or no?
I won't have anything until next week after Wizard World.
Yeah, that will probably be its own separate video. I picked up a few things at my second in Charles. They're having a sale going on, so I did a video on it, but I'll go over the stuff real quick. Picked up Dark Avengers volumes 1 and 2, so got those for pretty cheap. And the rest of my stuff is actually independents, so pretty cool. We talked about, I think, Criminal last week, so I picked up the first trade of that series. So that's cool.
It's the new printing too.
Yeah, I got it for it was like $5 or something, $5-6. I got Saga Volume 3, Sex Criminals Volume 3. So I gotta find Volume 2 because I have Volume 1 already. We got Fatal by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, so pretty cool. And Incognito by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips.
You went down the whole Brubaker crime noir rabbit hole, did you not?
I did. I think the only one I'm missing is Sleeper.
You're missing Sleeper, and you're missing
what's the other one? The Fade Out?
Yes.
Yeah, you're missing Fade Out, and you're missing one other one. It's the maybe not. I can't remember. I think it is. I think I'm thinking of the one I'm thinking of is Incognito. That's the one that never got any follow up.
Yeah, so I'll get a little bit of a sampler of all these and see which one's the best.
Cool. As Mike alluded to, this weekend, in fact, in 2 days, we will be, all three of us, as well as some other Students of S.H.I.E.L.D. members, will be going to Wizard World Philadelphia, and should be an exciting day, and probably all three of us will walk away
We'll be together in less than 24 hours at this point.
Yeah.
So
we'll walk away with quite the hauls, and as Dan said, probably end up being a separate video just because we'll have a lot to talk about, and therefore as well, next week, the haul part of the video may be non-existent or very minimal, which again, maybe that allows us to catch up and do very dedicated news section, but to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
Dan, kick us off with the retro book of this week. And also, I just want to note, just as a dumb trivia quibble, oftentimes we've called it the legacy book, and I cringe when I hear that, only because Marvel used the word legacy as like a initiative, Marvel Legacy.
do you want to make basically what you want to do is make the first retcon to the show and call it Spotlight and not Legacy?
Or anything. Legacy just makes it weird to me.
All right.
I don't care. You can keep calling it Legacy. I'm just gonna feel weird every time.
Well, I'm the one that has to make a rundown every week.
Yeah.
But what did we read this week?
So for this week, we read Tales of Suspense numbers 53, which is still just the Iron Man era of Tales of Suspense. We still haven't gotten Captain America in this book yet. So pretty much, just to sum this issue up, it's only 13 pages. Tony Stark creates a machine that can move mountains and shit, and Black Widow steals it because she wants to make up for her failure in like a previous issue. And we get, her coming in, stealing the machine, then Iron Man facing off against some Soviet bad guys and saving the day. And then we also get a Watcher issue or backup story, I guess. That's 5 pages, which actually was really cool for me to read because it kind of explains the whole origin of why the Watchers are the way they were, because they developed these, they became pretty much immortal and developed all these solutions, and they're like, we don't, we should share this with other people, other races in the universe. And what they came to find was that people destroyed themselves with the gifts that they bestowed upon them. And so that's kind of how they decided that we're just going to observe and never interfere with other groups of people. So I thought that was pretty cool to read that. So I don't know if you guys want to comment on anything else.
Yeah, this ended up basically being a key issue in the context of the Watcher.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, it's just, I think this is the second appearance of the Black Widow, and it directly follows her first. But like, there's nothing super interesting in the Iron Man story. But the Watcher thing was interesting. They have basically unlocked immortality by bathing in delta rays. Also, so the Iron Man story, plot by Stan Lee, script by N. Korok, aka real name is Don Rico, who also did like other minor Marvel stuff from the era and before. Like he did a lot of the jungle, like the jungle stories that they had. And this is the thing where it's like early Iron Man to me is so weird because it seems like it's the one that Stan Lee like hopped off or like started losing interest way faster than anything else.
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean, I think the Ant-Man / Giant Man stories, doesn't he hop off of that as well? Doesn't that end up being Larry Lieber?
Yeah, and I think it's pretty early on too. I think his brother takes over writing that pretty early on too. So, yeah.
And art here is by Don Heck, who he's fine. I mean, I'm sure as an Iron Man fan, you really love Don Heck.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when you compare to even, I think Kirby did some Iron Man, right?
Yeah, and I think he went on to do a lot of like covers in the beginning, in like the early days of Iron Man. But I don't know if he really did a lot of like interior stuff.
But he did a few, and then also I think early you also had some Gene Colan.
Oh yeah.
And so for me, it's like, I mean, not to diss him, but Don Heck versus Gene Colan or Jack Kirby, it's like whatever. And also like and I'm not just trying to shit talk on Iron Man because we also basically shit talked on Sergeant Fury a while back. So
but we still had Kirby art.
Yeah, but it didn't even impress me, and I thought
neither of these impressed me, but I like the Sergeant Fury one more.
I don't know. I think I actually like this one more. I found this one way easier to read than Sergeant Fury, but just the fact that it is a superhero book, I guess maybe I had like slightly higher expectations, and the fact that it didn't meet that stands out more to me. But like the whole Tony, Pepper, Happy love triangle, and then you add in Black Widow, it's just like so melodramatic and over the top. And it references how in the last issue, the last story, Tony let Black Widow just get away scot-free because she's just a woman.
Yeah, I read that too. That was hilarious.
There's also the scene like before he starts going out and trying to find Black Widow where he's like, to counter the ray, I have to supercharge my suit. So it's just a panel of him laying down in a bed.
Yeah. I love those old Iron Man days where he had to sit into the
I like how Tony Stark's drawn like Clark Gable.
Yeah,
he's very suave.
Very suave. Mm-hmm.
Very, very great outfit he's wearing. He's wearing a purple suit coat with a black ascot.
That's Tony for you.
With a blue undershirt.
And obviously, this is still the era where Iron Man is Tony's bodyguard. You know, that doesn't change until, 4 decades after this. Mm-hmm. But the end of the story essentially ends with Tony Stark looking like an idiot. Because Iron Man saves the day, but no one knows that they're the same person. And so Tony just looks like this fuck up. and there's like these like military guards are just shit talking Tony right in front of Iron Man. You have to play along with it.
And he's just smiling and shit. He's not pissed off at all.
I mean, I enjoyed this, but I was very underwhelmed compared to, I guess, what I may have expected. The retro book for next week is going to be a surprise. Did not get around to
I'm surprised because he hasn't done the arm.
getting it around to spinning the wheel. And the challenge is, if I spin the wheel and I land on independent, it takes me 5 times as long to figure that out. So that will be determined and revealed next week. Well, revealed to you guys. We will know shortly. Now I'll get into our non-retro books. First, we're starting with some DC stuff. Batman and the Outsiders #2. Same creative team of Brian Hill, with or without the Edward. And I don't remember the artist.
Dexter Soy.
Dexter Soy. So it starts out with Batman and Black Lightning talking to each other and kind of trading their philosophies, or it's really just Batman giving a lecture. And I thought this part was all right. There's some kind of interesting points here where Batman's like, I'm the embodiment of fear, and you can be the embodiment of hope, but you have to work towards that. And it's like I was expecting some lantern rings to fly over. And so this chick that we met last issue, the survivor of this like super being experiment lab or whatever, she's with Caliber, who is some edgy boy. I don't think
looks like a guy ripped right out of a 90s comic book.
Yeah, I don't think he's a thing. I don't think that we're supposed to know who he is. He is Markovian, which is where Geoforce and Terra are from, and of course Geoforce, longtime original Outsiders member, but it doesn't matter. He has stupid guns and a weird haircut. And she finally convinces him to give her a gun so she can protect herself. And she promises, I'm not going to kill myself. But then she tries to kill herself. And then Ishmael, our villain, shows up. The Outsiders show up. There's a fight. There's a moment where Signal and... Is Cassie Kane still... Is she Orphan? Is that her code name?
Orphan, I believe, is her code name now.
There's a moment where Signal and Orphan do this like combo move, and it's like the most shitty, like adulterated version of the fastball special, where she runs over and Signal boosts her to get a higher jump.
Yeah, and then she does a flying kick down,
which from her perspective, it's actually like sort of cool, but like that's literally all Duke/Signal does in this entire issue, is he puts his hands out so that Cassie can jump higher. And that, but I guess, you know, they're distracted during the fight. Caliber shoots Ishmael's arm open, but then it grows back or something. Yeah. And the girl, the like focal character of this series so far, ends up going off with Ishmael, and she's going to be taught by Ra's al Ghul. And I think personally, considering the number of pages and stuff, way less plot occurred in this issue than I would expect and hope.
Yeah.
And I don't really care. Like, I feel like this read very fast, but there was nothing in it, and I don't care about this female, about this main chick. I don't care about Ishmael. I don't understand or care about how they're connected to Ra's al Ghul, and I still don't fully buy or am interested in the team dynamics. So, it's not bad.
I'm partially with you. I like the fact that even though it's called Batman the Outsiders, it's pretty much just an Outsiders book.
So why is it called Batman the Outsider?
So it'll sell.
Yeah,
So it'll sell.
Yeah, Batman only shows up at the beginning of the book, right?
Yeah, he doesn't even. And guess what? I'm fine with that. So
yeah,
I don't have a problem.
I'm interested. I'm interested of them using Ra's al Ghul, but yeah, for the most part, I thought this. Yeah, exactly what you said. Read really fast. Not a lot happens. What's going on?
What the hell's going on?
Yeah, I didn't think it was bad. I don't think I'm gonna keep reading this.
I might drop off after the first arc. I'm gonna give it the first arc.
Yeah, I feel like I might do the same thing. I kind of wanted to see it through at this point.
Okay, that's Batman and the Outsiders.
Batman Outsiders number 2, Detective Comics 1005. Pete Tomasi and Brad Walker. Night Fight. This is the end of the Arkham Knight arc. This wraps up here, and I thought this was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, we always start with just basically. I find that funny, but basically, yeah, it's right there. Right as we left off, Batman and Robin are in their hang gliders, launching down at the villains, launching their attack at Arkham Knight. Her plan is to turn the city entirely bright and blind everyone into like a paving new, like a new start over for everyone. Um, really liked the team dynamic between Batman and Robin here working together. You get to see him fight Dr. Phosphorus, the Unmen. This is all really fun. And then they take down Arkham Knight at the end of it, and we are sure to see her again as even though she's being put away in Arkham, one of her kind of followers is still hitting the city and busts her out.
Well, no, it's one of the guards driving the van.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the guards.
So she doesn't even make it to Blackgate.
Can we talk
Right.
about? Can we talk about for a second how dumb her plan is, though? Like how she wanted to blind Gotham.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of
then-
weird.
Like
It's
I was
kind of
like,
weird, but I liked it. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Like-
Plus, you get that nice little moment with Batman being blind at the end, and Damian has to drive him around in the Batmobile.
yeah, I guess that's kind of funny.
I think this issue, like, it kind of ramped up and like presented that she's a little cuckoo.
Mhm.
Whereas
Yeah.
in previous issues, mostly because we didn't get too much from her, that wasn't clear to me. She just seemed
No, you can go. I'm just gonna.
she just seemed vigilante with a totally opposite thing, and she hates Batman. And even when we got the origin, it's like, okay, she has her motivation and she has a bias based on how she was raised and everything, but she didn't seem like off her rocker. Whereas this issue,
Well, Batman also here completely came out and said, "I didn't kill your mom."
Yeah.
yeah, I was waiting for that moment, and it's addressed in like 2 panels and is like thrown away pretty quickly. Which
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like I expected her to be like, "Oh shit, you're right, I give up." But it's like I guess he'll bring that up the next time. He
He's
didn't do anything this time.
Well,
just-
here's the thing: is she gonna just be a member of the Bat family in half a year?
I hope not. That would be very dumb.
I feel like that might just happen.
Plus-
I felt, though, Batman and Robin's dialogue very kind of BTAS-y in the way it read to me, so I liked that. Tomasi definitely has a handle down on, I feel, on how to write Batman dialogue, especially when he's like talking to villains. At least for me.
Yeah, and obviously you would expect that he would have a good Batman and Robin dynamic, specifically Bruce and Damian, since he wrote,
52 issues of it.
This was good.
That was really good. Next issue teases the Spectre. So, Vince, you excited?
Yeah, that's very exciting. Dan, do you know the Spectre?
I forget what colors. I forget what colors are his
Green and white.
Was it green and white?
He's green and white.
He's this
Okay. Okay, I think I've seen that before.
So he's the literal, depending on how seriously you take it, he's like a literal soldier of God who smites people.
Nice.
Isn't he like vengeance personified?
Yeah, basically. But like
Nice.
he's pretty linked to.
Golden Age Spectre does some really like terrifying stuff.
Yeah. All right. The big DC event, Heroes in Crisis, is over. Now it's time for like I guess like 3 events to juggle at the same time.
Well, Year of the Villain is a year-long thing.
Yeah,
That's-
it's like the overarching thing. But we're gonna have stuff in Justice League. We're gonna have whatever this Legion thing. We're gonna have this right here.
Batman has City of Bane, if you want to call that an event, but that's
Yeah.
just sticking to Batman, though.
Event Leviathan #1 by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev. We have Batman and Lois. They're hanging out in some busted up building.
It's the busted up building of the Argus facility.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how Maleev depicts Lois. Haven't been, obviously we read the special, which sort of comes directly before this, related to the Superman stuff, but I feel like Lois's hair is shown differently here by Maleev.
It looks a little shorter than what it's been, but nothing big.
And I
like
guess,
Batman.
yeah, and if you want to hear more about Alex Maleev's Batman, tune in.
Yeah. Watch this week's earlier episode of No Man's Land.
Plug.
So Lois talks about her father, Sam Lane, being targeted and then having a heart attack. Where was that?
Action Comics.
Okay, because was not in the direct previous, was not in the special.
Yeah, last arc of Action Comics in the build up to this event, it happens there.
They have this whole conversation, and honestly, there's not much to comment on. They're just going back and forth.
I thought the dialogue was good, though.
Yeah, it's great. It's just like there's no huge revelations in this issue. There's no plot. They're just sitting and talking, a good conversation, but not much to share about. And it turns out the entire time Steve Trevor was in the corner. So they talk to him, and we get some more backstory. They're in the destroyed Odyssey building in Coast City. We get a flashback, and there's some scientist that was working with Steve Trevor, and this building is owned by Argus, or run by Argus, and there's this scientist or researcher woman talking about some mumbo jumbo about like social media or networking, connecting superheroes and people, and it's just some buzzword, doesn't really matter. And then there's some big weird explosions. Steve and basically everyone dies except for Steve, and something happens to this woman. And then back in the present with Batman and Lois, Steve freaks the hell out. So he gets a taser arrow from Green Arrow, who has just arrived or has also been creeping there the entire time. And he, same thing, has some dialogue, some strong written dialogue with Batman and Lois, but not really coming to any major conclusions. But they've decided they got to find other detective type of characters and figure out what the hell is going on.
Well, the question's there, but he doesn't make himself known.
Yes. So basically, this is like one of those memes where it's like you zoom out with someone watching another person and you see another person.
Yeah.
There's like 3 people in the corner, and then that scientist chick, the like social media bullshit, she was captured, and basically she's now on Leviathan's side.
Well, that's how Leviathan's been influencing people.
Yeah.
In Action Comics, and that's how like they're getting their messages spread. But also, they've been systematically going through and taking out all of like the lead, like kind of high divisions of the DC universe. So Argus is out, the DEO is out, like the Suicide Squad got taken out. So everyone's trying to figure out, all right, what the hell's going on? Because all these attacks leave no remnants of like any kind of evidence.
Yeah, and Superman is off-world.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's a reference to the current crossover that's happened this week that we didn't read. And I know he's going to show up in this later.
I would imagine. Dan, you just read all of Bendis and Maleev's Daredevil.
Mm-hmm.
That impact any of your reading here?
I would say, I mean, I'm still trying to figure out a lot about what's going on in this book. But I mean, I would say Maleev's art in this is definitely improved from what I read You know, in the Daredevil stuff, obviously we're talking about I don't know how many years ago, like at least
Well,
10
you're
years ago,
saying
right?
improved.
What'd you say?
Interesting. I'm just saying, interesting.
Well, I think it looks better. I mean, in some ways, I don't know. Maybe that's just me, because I feel like his stuff back then was a little bit rougher. I mean, in terms of Bendis, I mean, he's kind of always been the way he has. You know, but yeah, it's kind of cool to look at them both, in terms of at DC and at Marvel now. So
Well, I think for Maliv, I think Daredevil is that's his peak for me. Like, I think this is a step down, but still really good.
What about Moon Knight?
We don't talk about that book.
All right, Dan. What about Flash? No Bendis over there.
no, so Flash, shit, who's it written by?
Joshua
Josh
Williamson,
Okay, Williamson, and then Porter. What's the first name? I forget.
Howard.
Okay, cool. So we're picking up from the last issue. Flash is fighting against the Turtle. I think that's what his name is, right? Turtle.
Yep.
And just getting him kind of monologuing to himself again, and he's fighting the Turtle now in the present day, and he's determined to beat him because he knows that he's a bank robber today, but if he lets him go and he lets him do his thing, he will become the he will take over Central City, um in the future, which is what we learned from the last issue. So we get a fight scene between Turtle and Flash, and it's really cool because you think Flash would just be able to plow over this guy, but this guy actually uses him slowing him down against him, and he throws him through a wall, which actually ends up backfiring on the Turtle because Flash is able to vibrate through the wall, kind of like how he's able to vibrate through time, I guess, back in the Silver Age. And he collapses the wall, and the wall collapses on Turtle, and Turtle gets taken away. We also get a cool scene where there's debris that's flying towards Iris,
Yeah.
right? And he kind of sticks his hand out and stops a piece of brick from hitting her head. The police end up taking him away, and then we get Flash come back onto the scene as the CSI investigator that he is, and we get a nice discussion between the two of them, and they decide to go get coffee or whatever. Or actually, no, they decide to go get dinner instead. And we get a nice monologue of them two hanging out, getting to know each other more better and all that stuff. We get more montages of Flash busting, all these break-ins and stuff. He talks about how he leaves his logo at the scene of the crimes that he stops. And we even get a mention of him trying to figure out a different way to store his costume, which I think is a nod to him with the ring that he used to shoot his uniform out of, or costume out of, back in the Silver Age.
No, he does it to this day.
Oh, he does it too? Okay.
Yeah, that's how he uses his costume. He just hasn't, in this origin story, he hasn't figured it out yet.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. And then we get a really cool scene where Iris is stopping by to visit, and Flash goes around, just cleans up all his stuff, throws his costume away so she doesn't see it. And then they're about to go, hang out when Iris finds out about this robbery going down that's led by this guy named Clive Yorkin, which he's wearing these sunglasses that remind me so much of Mole Man. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw the glasses, and I'm like, okay. So yeah, so she leaves to go bust that whole thing down, and then obviously Flash follows behind her. It gets into a kind of fight in the streets, and Flash pulls a Quicksilver from Days of Future Past and stops all the bullets from hitting Iris, and then we end the issue with the Flash laying in his apartment bleeding to death. So I'm not sure if he took the bullets or what, but he doesn't seem like he's in good shape. So
Yeah, he got hit by one of them. I think his graffiti thing is really fucking weird. He explains that he comes back and cleans it up a day later,
yeah,
but it's still strange.
yeah, I don't get that either. That's kind of weird.
So this Clive Yorkin character, is from old Flash stuff. He was a career criminal, and instead of like getting the death penalty, he opted for an experimental like treatment, and they, pseudoscience, they reversed the pleasure and pain centers of his brain. The idea was to like demotivate him from committing crimes because he would feel pain when he committed crimes. But that doesn't affect him. And he ends up being a suspect of Iris's murder because she was killed by Reverse Flash in the Silver Age, or like actually the Bronze Age. But he didn't murder her. It was Reverse Flash. And at some point, he also had the ability to drain life energy by touching people, kind of like Rogue, but without the power stealing.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, I don't watch it. He's also on a TV show, and on that, he's like a bitter Flashpoint refugee who is mad at everyone related to Flashpoint, which I relate to. I like this issue. It wasn't as strong as the last two.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it's something. It's definitely a series I'm gonna keep following, just because, I'm digging the art. The story is easy to follow for me, and yeah, I like it.
Yep.
Alrighty. Then I guess this is our final DC book, right? No, yeah.
Now we have two more.
Yeah, we got two more.
So I'm going to talk about Hawkman 13. This is this is Robert Venditti's Hawkman run. This is the first issue without Brian Hitch. This is the first one drawn by Will Conrad. And I believe basically the first 12 issues are all one like extended arc, even though there's certain phases and stuff. And so I think within the previous issues, I'm jumping in somewhat cold. I read the first few issues, but then I'm jumping to here. My understanding is that Carter Hall Hawkman has sort of figured out more conclusions about his reincarnation and origin story and stuff like that. And so he's out in space he has his own ship, and there's an entire museum within his ship. And so he goes to the museum, and he has a bunch of books about his past lives. So he opens one up and reads a story, and that's basically our framing device. And so we jump back to one of his previous lives, and it's kind of like a Starship Troopers like satire thing, where it's a planet, and there are two alien races, even though they look totally like humans, but they're two races from their own planets, but they're in a war on the battleground of this planet. And it's trench warfare. So there's two trenches, and they're there, and they've been fighting this war against each other for generations. And they're very similar. Like they have basically the exact same uniforms, the exact same weapons, but they're different colors. And Carter, or Hawkman, however you want to conceptualize it, this person, soul entity is reincarnated over and over again, but back and forth on each side of the war. And so within 300 years, he lives 8 lives on this planet on each side of the war. And one day, and he like kind of has like super vague memories of his previous lives. And also possibly he keeps the same journal, but I don't think so. But I guess he's just recording those like faint pseudo memories that he's not sure about. And so one day he decides, and he always dies by like, his commander being like, "We're charging now," and he gets shot. And so one day he decides he's just going to walk up out of the trench, kind of like a Wonder Woman moment, but instead he's just going to walk out, put out his hands, unarmed, and he ends up making peace with a woman from the other side who's basically a Hawkwoman counterpart. And so he ended the war. And then in the present, back to the other side of the framing device, he visits this planet today where there's a giant statue of that version of his past self. And the two civilizations, they made peace. They didn't go back to their home planets. They just stayed and integrated together on this planet. And it's a pretty good, like almost entirely one-off story. I thought the art by Will Conrad was great. That said, there's like literally no Hawkman in here. It's just Carter reading books and then this weird like trench warfare stuff. So I'm not entirely sure yet how he's going to handle Hawkman, but the art was good. It's obviously different and arguably a step down from Brian Hitch, but I enjoyed it. And this was like a weird like 2000 AD Twilight Zone type of thing, and I really enjoyed it.
So you're sticking with Hawkman then?
Yeah, I'm gonna
because I know you've been waiting to jump on it.
Yeah, it's again, I believe those first 12 issues were basically an entire arc, and I had gotten so behind that it wasn't worth it until like I eventually get the trades. And so I was waiting for the jumping on point and I got it and I enjoyed it, so I'm gonna keep going. One of my favorite characters. I have 3 Hawkman custom binds. Eventually it'll be 5.
Shit.
All you need to do now is get some original Kubert art, and you're really complete.
Yeah, I fucking wish.
Wait, maybe you can buy some this weekend.
No.
Just no way.
All right, what's our final DC book?
Final DC book is Wonder Twins #5 by Mark Russell and Stephen Byrne. So I just want to quickly point out this book is extended to 12 issues. It was originally only solicited 6, but we're getting 12. Same goes for Dial H for Hero. So work that one bit of news in here. But it's they're inconvenienced by the League of Annoyance. Picking up where we last left off, Gina and her friend Polymath have entered the science fair and they're judging it, and Polymath wins. Her dad, if we remember, Philomath was the one, he worked for Lex Luthor, and he was fired because he didn't work for Lex Luthor anymore. He goes back to his house, and the Scrambler is there. The Scrambler, who has now excommunicated himself from the League of Annoyance because he's like, I cannot deal with this. And he tells him what his master plan is, and we get the backstory for him as he used to be a magician that turned people into fish.
Nice.
and creeped people out. So I found that funny. The Wonder Twins are done with dealing with the League of Annoyance, so they want to take them out of commission. So they invite them for a battle in the zoo where the Wonder Twins will have the upper hand as Jaina can use her animal morphing powers there, which is a pretty good plan. If you're wondering what Zan conceals himself as, he conceals himself as the water that comes out of a water fountain, and he just kicks one of the League of Annoyance right in the face as he goes in to drink water. And Jaina transforms into a kangaroo, and she beats down the Red Flag, who was her date from the last issue. Cell phone Sylvia escapes, and she uses her cell phone to accidentally just like completely just disintegrate Polly's dad, who is there also. And then the rest of the issue is like this, it's Mark Russell's commentary on how the media can like repaint someone back in a positive light after a controversy, and how we just kind of sweep things under the rug, because it's established that Lex Luthor owns all the media in the DC universe. So in order to repair Cell Phone Sylvia's image, she goes on a bunch of like talk show press junkets to clear her name. To the one point she goes on like they have a shot of like this point counterpoint show, and I thought it was the Scarecrow, but it's literally just a rebuttal by a guy named Strawman, who is just like a guy. He's a straw man, obviously playing into the straw man fallacy. There's a Judge Judy take there, and also there's Punditron 5000 who just wants to plug his book. And then it's revealed that because Cell Phone Sylvia's new cell phone is actually like from Krypton and Kryptonite based, It's sending all the people she thinks she's disintegrated is actually sending them to the Phantom Zone. So that'll pick up in the next issue.
That's pretty cool.
And then as well as Polly has gone to the Scrambler, and they are enacting the plan of complete media takeover as the Scrambler's tapped into every media device and is brainwashing people. So Polly's kind of becoming a villain. So the Wonder Twins are gonna have to deal with that in the next issue. Still in love in this book. It's really, really fun and goofy. Really, really funny from Mark Russell, and only the way he can make things funny.
Polymath is a great name.
So we're So we're going to Marvel.
Yep. And you're kicking us off again.
I am.
Yeah, amazing.
You didn't read Conan?
Oh, no.
Okay. Kicking us off again. My pick of the week, which I don't know if you guys have said your picks yet. If we get to them, say them. My pick of the week was Amazing Spider-Man number 23, the epilogue to Hunted, by Spencer and Otley. Otley's back on art this time. We get the funeral for the original Kraven, and we see the son basically. We see him grieve, and then by the end of this, he becomes the new Kraven the Hunter, which basically is this clever way of putting the pieces back together of like, okay, we killed the original, but here's this new one that looks exactly the same, so you can do it now. And I was like, okay, I'm fine with it. Is it having your cake and eating it too? Absolutely. But is it a case where I think it works? Yes. A lot of this issue is Nick Spencer setting up the future of his run here, as it's kind of a reset issue. Not as much as an epilogue issue. The Avengers come in, and they were able to take down the rest of the villains that were trapped in Central Park, and the people that were buying in, and the rich people that were buying into this hunting game. By the way, we get to see Otley draw Captain America. Draws a really good Captain America.
Yeah, on the other hand, in one panel, or mostly one panel, he draws Carol Danvers' face in a really weird way.
Yeah, I saw that.
His Thor is a little weird looking too.
You also skipped over that Kraven Jr. beats up a bunch of taxidermy. That was my favorite scene in the book.
He punches the head off a gorilla, which is awesome. But Spider-Man is not helping the cleanup, as he kind of got the sense that Mary Jane was in danger during all of this, so that's his top priority, as he just dives right through the window and picking up where he left off, to try to see where she's at. This is my favorite, which was my favorite scene of the book.
Yeah.
And it's revealed that it's a total fake out. We see the windows broken, and like, oh no, the weird new bug man whose name I can't remember.
Black Ant?
No, that's not. No, the weird like centipede dude.
Oh yeah.
I forget what that villain's name is. But no, MJ just cut herself on the broken glass from the window because it was Peter. She tripped over Peter's laundry and she flung her arm through the window. So
I wasn't clear on that. Does she trip and accidentally crack the window, or did she trip and then punch the window separately out of frustration?
No, she says she fell, and like it's like one of those things where you put your hands out to stop and it went through the window.
Okay.
So there, but then we see it's not all fine, as there's a centipede there and the narration, so we know it's coming. This big showdown, this big master plan that we've been revealed, which one of the theories I saw online is that this guy is the original body of Doc Ock, and with Peter's memories.
That's weird.
So that could be very interesting if that's what it is.
Yeah.
We see the young Kraven gets a note from his father, basically telling him you're good to take up on the mantle. But I guess to quickly point out the other parts of this, we get a new Sinister Six. What are they calling themselves? The Savage Six. That's set up here. The rest of the vermin are just in the subways eating people.
Is this the issue where we get Chameleon, or is that another one of those Spider-Man?
Oh yeah, Alien's the big reveal at the end.
Mhm.
I was gonna get to it at the end.
Oh,
which
okay,
is
my bad.
I like that because I like the Chameleon, but it's Black Cat that actually finishes out getting Billy Connors back to his mom. It's not Spider-Man doesn't even come back in that story. It's Black Cat who solved that. So yeah, at the very end, we see at the funeral for Craven, the Chameleon was there. So that's setting up. So a lot of moving parts and setup in this issue. I had a lot of fun with it, and I really am excited to see where we go after Hunted. But and I guess as a final shout out, the best bromance in comics is back. Is Black Ant is saved by Taskmaster, and they're
Yeah, I didn't like love this issue, but as far as like an epilogue slash like bridge downtime issue, this was really perfect because they literally just did like basically leave out the crumbs and set himself up for there's like 8 arcs that could flow out of this because I mean a really minor one. I don't necessarily know when we might expect Taskmaster and Black Ant again, but they're now in back together to do whenever
well,
they're
they've been constant throughout his whole run.
yeah yeah, but it was leading up to this, so we'll see when they're used again. You've got the Savage Six. You have so Billy's home, but it's implied that some like his dad didn't come out like 100% fine.
Yeah,
So
well, Connors also still doesn't have the neurochip that kept him in check too. So
there's going to be something Connor's lizard. There's the vermin thing. There's obviously the big centipede dude that's been teased this entire time.
which that's going to be the next arc because he's on the cover.
Yeah.
Issue.
There's new Craven and there's Chameleon. So there's literally like half a dozen things. And if he touches on all those, that's another 25 issues easily.
Yeah, and they're running an ads in the Marvel books right now. It was in the Hulk Last Call issue last week that was like, get ready for year 2 of Nick Spencer and Ryan Ottley on Amazing Spider-Man. Even more fun, kind of. It was like it felt like an old school ad, and I was like, wow, I'm really excited, especially after this issue. This is everything I want, kind of in an epilogue. You're like you're saying, it sets up. It felt like a season finale almost of what we could expect in year 2, as Spencer's finishing up his first year on the book. And I've said I want him to stay on this book for a really long time. I want him on for like 5 years. It's not going to happen, but I want him on for 5 years.
We also know to expect Patrick Gleason on this book soon.
That's right. I've completely forgot about that. But I think the MJ scene, the scene with MJ, is the one that really put it over for me. We're doing the whole Spidey corner right now in this block, so we'll get the last book later. But this was neck and neck for me between this and Life Story as my pick of the week. But this barely won out. Really, really enjoyed this issue.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like you just said, this really makes me want to go back and just reread or read the rest of Nick Spencer's run on Amazing Spider-Man because what I've been reading so far, I think I've read like three issues of his run so far, and I really enjoyed all 3 of them. So definitely will probably be seeing if I can pick this up in trade or whatever format Marvel's putting them out in.
I think the first 2 trades are out now.
Probably, yeah.
Which would mean the first hardcover's probably on the way.
I might pick it up. We'll see.
Not announced or anything.
Well, that's I know the first hardcovers are the first 12. So.
Mm-hmm.
Symbiote Spider-Man #3. This is Peter David, Greg Land. So Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin's researcher dude, is tasked with finding out Cloak's powers. And we get a footnote to Spectacular Spider-Man 97. Here's the huge fucking problem. Peter Parker, within the context of Spectacular, did not have the black suit after 96. So if this takes place after Spectacular 97, unless that's saying that this, I don't know, this might be a huge continuity issue, or it's like a future footnote. I'm not sure. But this research guy in Mysterio, they want to find out about the symbiote because Mysterio saw it in action last issue. And they know who Felicia is. Her secret identity is known, and everyone knows she hangs out with Spider-Man. So they're going to manipulate her or use her. Spidey fights Electro through a Cats performance on Broadway, which I don't care. But there is I think this was a neat moment where he takes Electro out by lighting a match directly under a sprinkler. I thought that was clever. I imagine
that was clever.
Maybe that's happened one time before, but that was cool. And then he gets into a fight with Black Cat, not a physical fight, over his aunt because she met Aunt May last issue, and she's like, "Hey, kind of want to, you should tell her that you're Spider-Man." Blah 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 blah. He gets butthurt, and Mysterio blackmails her into getting a piece of the suit and he's able to do this by threatening to give Spidey a file explaining how she got her bad luck powers from Kingpin. And this is basically all that stuff is, the status quo of the era. Black Cat, when she was originally created, she had no powers whatsoever. She's just a not boring, but she's just a vigilante, a Catwoman ripoff for Spider-Man. And eventually in this later, like early 80s spectacular era, she gets these luck powers because she feels that she needs to be upgraded essentially to effectively be Spider-Man's partner as she's trying to turn a new leaf and be more of a hero than a thief and stuff like that. But Kingpin fucks her over and it's bad luck, and which often gives Spider-Man bad luck and eventually leads to their breakup, which allows the setup for him to get back with MJ, get married, etc. But like this whole Mysterio angle, depending on how far it goes, slightly complicates that because Mysterio obviously was never involved in the original arc of that. And so she goes along with Mysterio's plan, seduces Peter. We get a nice shot of Black Cat in lingerie. But then, and okay.
Number one thing Land wanted to draw in this book.
Yeah, I'm sure he used some interesting reference material for that page. And the thing is, she seduces him. He's going to fall asleep. You're fine. Just do it then. But on top of that, she has to use a knockout chemical lipstick, which makes the scene way more unethical and rapey. And she gets a piece of the symbiote. And then the symbiote creeps onto Peter and he like wakes up in the middle of the night. And I don't know if that's supposed to imply that like the symbiote has passed along the knowledge that it was Felicia, or if it's just he woke up. And then there's a weird one-page epilogue by a different creative team. It's by Clay Chapman and Francesco Mobili. And it's like people coming to New York on a bus, and one of them is a photographer looking for Spider-Man. And I don't get the point of this. Maybe it'll tie into the next issue, and it's like a little Easter egg, not Easter egg, but like a little lead. And I don't know if we're supposed to know this photographer character. I was thinking Nick Katzenberg, who we briefly saw a reference to on the Clone Saga podcast, but he's usually depicted as like a slobby, like overweight guy who smokes a lot, and that's definitely not what this guy looks like. I didn't get the point of this at all. I don't hate this issue. I don't hate this series, but the Greg Land art doesn't remotely help it, and I don't really find myself caring that much. I just get really excited when I see the footnotes in this series, and then frustrated that sometimes they don't make sense.
I'm with you on this book. I'm not even gonna give a take. Yeah, my take's basically the same as yours.
All right, Dan, wrap us up with the last Spider-Man book for the day.
Okay, so I
Out
had
of Spider-Man corner because
what'd say?
so get us out of Spider-Man corner.
Okay, I will. So I had Spider-Man Life Story number 4, the '90s, written by Chip Zdarsky, art by Mark Bagley. And we open up to 1995, where there's a fire going on, and we have, I'm assuming Ben Riley,
Yep.
taking pictures with this other girl named Lori. And as he's taking the pictures, he notices that Lori gets grabbed by the head by Dr. Octopus, who at this point looks like he's in his like 70s or so. And he's like basically he gets captured by Dr.
He's
Octopus.
probably like in his,
What'd you say?
He's old.
Yeah, he's pretty old.
like in his
Yeah, so and then we pan over to Parker Industries in New York, where we have a discussion between Tony and Peter about a merger between the two companies. And Tony's like, "What can I say to convince you to join my company?" And Peter's like, "Stop making weapons." And I'm just the whole time I'm reading this, I'm a little confused about the ages because Peter looks like he's older than Tony. Like Tony should be at least 20 years older, if not like like 30 years older than I don't know how old Tony should be, but he definitely doesn't look as old as he probably should be at that time. Anyway, so they get into a huge argument. They walk out, and then Jessica Jones calls, and she's like, "Are you coming over tonight so we can bang?" And he's like, "No, I gotta do other stuff." And so we get a shot of him in the Spider-Man suit that he's wearing these days, which is pretty cool. You got like the little details going on the sides of the costume. We get some shots of him beating up bad guys, all that stuff. And then we have Dr. Octopus in the street wrecking buses, telling Spider-Man to show himself. And we get Spider-Man flying or swinging in, catching a bus, fighting against Dr. Octopus until he gets knocked out by gas and brought into this lab in Oscorp where you have Ben Riley and Peter strapped up to a table, and what's his name? Harry's there, and we find out that Peter is actually a clone of Peter, and Ben is actually the real Peter. And this kind of blows my mind. I mean, I know it's obviously over the Clone Saga and stuff like that, but
wait. Time out.
what?
Time out.
Okay.
For the duration of this book. Welcome to Saga of the Clone Saga.
Yeah, right.
Because now this is literally just Clone Saga now related.
Definitely. So yeah, so this issue's pretty crazy. So we get into a whole scuffle. Ben Riley breaks out of the restraints and fights against Dr. Octopus. You get Peter fighting against him too. And in the scuffle, Harry Osborn is actually killed by Dr. Octopus. And we get Dr. Octopus kind of getting away. Peter saves Ben from falling out a window. And then we get a discussion on the rooftop where pretty much Peter hands over all the shit to Parker Industries to Ben and is like, "Okay, you're Peter Parker now. I'm giving you my company. I'm done being Peter." If that's what I'm assuming. That's what I got from that whole conversation.
Yeah.
And then we get like a joke where Ben pulls out the Scarlet Spider mask, which I thought was pretty funny. And then we get, another phone call by Jessica Jones. And then Peter stops by and visits Norman Osborn, who's this old cranky man. And I just love how like he has like, that classic hair from like the 70s and, 60s and 70s, but it's like white now. So it's like, it looks weird. Yeah, you get some really really close up panels of like his old face and shit. It's really weird. And basically, Peter tells him, that his son was killed by Dr. Octopus, and obviously Norman takes it out on him. He tries sending a glider at Peter. He breaks it in his hands, and then Norman Osborn dies of a heart attack. And the last thing we get is Peter kind of coming home and seeing his kids again and seeing Mary Jane, and that's the end of the issue. So this is my pick of the week. It summarizes a lot of stuff from that era that I haven't really read a lot of, but it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to see now that he's getting like really old now, like how he deals with being Spider-Man. Because the last issue, he's still kind of like, he wasn't old enough to like be considering like hanging up the costume, but this is kind of on that borderline. So I thought it was pretty good.
I don't really like it. That's all I'll say.
I mean, you're wrong because it's good. You can just be cranky that it's. I don't know why you don't just treat this as an Elseworlds, because that's what it is.
Well, I don't really like Elseworlds. That's the main thing.
Well, I think this is great because it connects all the way back to the first issue from the 60s, and then follows up on the Clone Saga stuff we set up in the 70s. And then I also like the fact that Zdarsky is paying attention to, we have an older Spider-Man, so he has that line where he's like, Doctor says I really shouldn't be catching anything other than cars at this point.
Yeah,
he's catching that bus. So, I mean, the suit design is take it or leave it. I mean, I think is more purists. You're not going to like to see these weird Spider-Man costumes every issue, but I think logistically, if you're thinking of it in a sense of, well, I'm getting older and I'm a scientist, I'm going to have to take the measures to keep improving my suit so I have a lesser risk of dying, which that's what we've got. So yeah, I've really been enjoying this, especially like I said, after figuring out that okay, this is going to be not just like a Marvel's thing; it's going to be a wholly its own thing, that a story that Zdarsky wanted to tell. And I still think Mark Bagley on it is really, really good and fun. So yeah, Dan, you said this is your pick of the week. This was, like I said, just not mine. Like I read Amazing, and then I read this, and I was like, after I put down Amazing, I was like, okay, that's my pick of the week. And then I read this, and I was like, okay, now I have to sit down and rethink about it again. But yeah, I like both of these books a lot this week. I'm very intrigued to see what he's going to do with the 2000s.
Oh yeah, me too.
All right, Dan, how did Giant Man end?
It was really good actually. You have, so basically from last issue we got to the point where the four Giant Man characters got to the fortress that Ymir was being stored in. So they're basically scaling the wall. We kind of get like a little bit of discussion of where each of the characters are at this point, and they're obviously using their small powers to kind of get past the outer defenses. And they notice that like all these women are being walked into the fortress, and they go to find out what's going on. And here we get into the fortress, and we see Carla, who is, I guess, known as Moonstone, and she worked out a deal with the Frost Giants that she would save all the women from being persecuted by like Laufey and like all these ice giants and stuff if they helped like harvest ice from Ymir to create new frost giants. So that's pretty much why all these women are working inside the fortress. They're basically taking pieces off of this like giant ice creature and creating new frost giants out of them. And I think Eric Jostin has a relationship with Moonstone, and he's
they're both Thunderbolts.
Okay, yeah, that's what she said, and she's basically telling him, like, he's telling him, you're such a pushover. You just listen to what everyone else tells you to do, and Eric is telling her, is like, you gotta what do you think's going to happen after they've, used you up and they don't need you anymore? So we kind of get a discussion with that, and breaks out into a huge fight between Carla and the giant men, and then Carla sends the ice giants onto them to attack them. Yeah, pretty much the big reveal here at the end is that we get Cassie Lang that comes back and basically beats the shit out of Carla and frees all of these women and basically saves the day. Yeah, there's really not much else to this issue other than at the end they all end up getting away. Ymir ends up being freed, even though like they were sent there to kill him. They were like, we probably shouldn't kill this guy because he is getting harassed to death, so he might be actually like a prisoner. So they set him free, and then the end of the issue is pretty much just the 4 giant men and Cassie Lane looking on. And yeah, it's only 3 issues, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, does it?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. It was kind of irrelevant. It's just a cool thing, novel thing to have all 4 of the giant men together. But I feel like this could have been better if it was just a better context. I don't know why it's a War of Realms book. Like it could have been. I think it's better suited for like some other type of context. But I thought it was all right. So, yep.
Okay.
Right. The Immortal Hulk, number 19. This issue began the black page with the quote for this issue was, "I would eat his heart in the marketplace," from William Shakespeare in Act 4, Scene 1 of Much Ado About Nothing. This issue ends with the Hulk's heart getting eaten by the Red Harpy. So, I didn't know it was going to be a very literal sense here with that one. To quickly summarize this, the Hulk is still battling this new abomination, and this new abomination has acid powers in his mouth. So he starts burning all of the Hulk's limbs off. We got shadow-based people murdering people around the scene because the shadow base is trying to keep this quiet. And then we have the Red Harpy who met up with Jacqueline McGee, the reporter, in the last issue, on her way to confront the Hulk and the Abomination. And this whole issue is basically Betty's issue, as it's her narrating it. And by the time we see her rip off a dude's head with her talons, it's horrifying. But by the time she gets to the Hulk has no limbs left, and his eyes have been burned out by the acid. The big takeaway here is that the Hulk is not healing from this acid, from this new abomination. So it's the first time the Immortal Hulk has been really kind of hurt by anything and been put down. And Banner has reverted to the child Hulk personality as he's talking in third person in very simplistic sentences here. And then the Red Harpy kind of takes her revenge on the Hulk by digging her talons into the Hulk's chest, and she takes out his heart, and begins eating it. As McGee just watches in horror as the Red Harpy and the Abomination have completely eviscerated the Hulk in front of her. And the whole time that the Red Harpy's doing this to the Hulk's just like, no, Betty's friend. Why is Betty doing this? That's just like horrifying, and just like hard to look at. This is great. This is amazing. But I say that every issue. But just when you think it can't get more disgusting, it does. But very interested to see where a limbless, eyeless, and now heartless Hulk goes here.
Jeez. Over in, I guess, slightly less morbid territory, we have Invaders.
It's pretty morbid, too. I mean, we're dealing with the war criminal now.
We start with a flashback to the Invaders era, only worth noting because the Wizard is in this comic. And it turns out that the bomb that Namor set off last issue is a chemical thing, and it turns people into Atlanteans, essentially. So they have to breathe water, and we later learn that's irreversible, to our knowledge. And so Tony somehow is going to take everyone to the water, but Namor's here to save the day by calling in a giant tsunami because everyone needs to breathe water real quick. So he's just going to destroy this town with water. And Carol fucking Danvers shows up out of nowhere. I guess it sort of becomes an Avengers jumping
the
in.
Avengers showed up last issue.
Yeah. They show up to stop Tony from fighting Namor while he's technically saving people. Cap jumps on a motorcycle and rides real fast to get to Namor's friend's granddaughter, I guess, and jumps off a cliff to save her, dives into the water. It's a pretty good page or two, and then is suddenly face to face with Namor and her relative or friend who was the traitor.
It was her son.
Yeah. And then we basically get a flash forward. Tony is repairing Jim Hammond, the Human Torch, which is good to see. And Steve has been MIA for a while. Everyone's assumed, he needs some time to recoup and process after Namor did some crazy shit. And no one died technically, besides, there were the two Atlanteans who had done the opposite, turned to humans, and then they drowned. And then I guess that's really it. Maybe just those two people died, and they wouldn't necessarily be counted. So 3,000 people are now essentially Atlanteans and live underwater. And we get back to the flashbacks of Namor saying he'll prevent any event from ever happening again on the scale of World War II. And somehow that ties in here. I actually kind of like this issue, sort of.
I'm surprised you like this. I thought you were going to hate this.
I don't know. Obviously, I like all the issues that have flashback segments. And I feel like now that I know that it was this weird turn people into Atlanteans thing, rather than let me just drop a bomb and kill 3,000 people, that totally changes my interpretation of the story. This is basically Sub Diego if Aquaman had did it himself.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was thinking.
It's kind of weird. I don't really like it, but now I don't absolutely hate it, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm really liking this. Particularly the sequence with Cap trying to go back and save the woman was really good, but the Butch guy. Anytime we get Geist art, it's been fantastic though. So, especially in the flashbacks, they're definitely setting up Winter Soldier more in play for this next arc here. So interested to see where this goes as this concludes the first arc. So, yeah. Dan, what happens in Riri Williams' Ironheart?
Ironheart.
Yeah, so this is actually my first. I think this is actually my second issue I've ever read with Riri in it. Because I read the Generations issue back a few years ago. But Riri Williams, she's tracking down these terrorists that that are parts of the 10 Rings, which we know from the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a terrorist organization that's in the first Iron Man movie. But she moves back and sets up headquarters in her hometown, Chicago. And we get kind of a, breakdown of the place. Nadia is there, the new Wasp, the Unstoppable Wasp, I guess.
Yeah.
And we get her friend Xavier, who's just some random kid. He brings pizza over, they chill. This is kind of one of those issues that's like it's a pretty campy, fun issue. It's nothing too serious. She has just some breakdown here. She has like this this AI like Tony does, except for Friday. It's called Natalie, and it's an acronym. I don't know what the Natalie stands for, but it's like this other chick that pretty much is like an actual human that pops up and points to her where to go. And pretty much it's just a zombie invasion. This Xavier guy dresses up in like this outfit, and it's pretty much them going to find out where these zombies are coming from. And we get some cool armor shots of Ironheart. I really like Ironheart's new design for her armor. I think the heart like arc reactor on the side, like not centered but like off centered, is kind of cool. The armor looks really cool. Different shades of black and red in there, I think, are awesome. The Wasp design is pretty cool too. I got to catch up with that series too. Um, and yeah, pretty much they track down the zombies. They're all coming from this airport terminal, and we find out that in the terminal there's this woman called Eclipse that apparently is working with the Ten Rings. So pretty much this is just another setup for, I guess, a big clash with the Ten Rings organization. And yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty fun issue, I would say. It's nothing too serious, but I like this group of people. I think it's kind of cool. We'll see how it goes.
All right.
I don't really like the new costume.
She's had a good costume yet.
Well, especially since they moved away with Tony from the Marquez design, they could have just kept her in that.
Yeah, but I just feel like that wasn't like. I mean, I liked it, but like I think this kind of sets it up her apart a little bit more. I'm not. I don't know. I mean,
I just don't like the armor.
Yeah.
I read Major X #5. I really do.
Please tell me this was your pick of the week.
No.
What was your pick of the week?
We're getting it's the last book.
Okay. All right.
Major X #5. I didn't want to read this, and then I kind of just like accidentally ended up reading it. We're in the present of 2019, and Rob Liefeld's script says that in 2019 and in the future of 2019, as like the rest of the year, it's a time of great upheaval for mutants, which I guess could be referring to Age of X-Men, Disassembled, Rosenberg's run, and
no way he's referencing that. There's no way.
Well, I don't know. And so we have several characters. Okay, so this issue #5 introduces several characters of crucial importance to this series, like in terms of the plot,
next issue,
which we've never seen before. And then Old Man so like the Essential dies and filters his soul into this girl that we've never met before, who has this really ridiculous, awful design where she's all pink, and she uses like this like face, this like pink like animal face for a shield, for her mask, and on her shoulders. And so she's the new Essential, I guess, and rebels against the I don't know, the people. And Old Man Namor in the future is going to war with the X-Men, while the present X-Men, who are clearly pre-Age of X-Men, because Storm is here, Kitty Pryde, Jubilee, Nightcrawler, the present day X-Men meet up with Major X, and it turns out that Major X's mother, remember his father, I'm pretty certain was Cable? His father was Cable.
His father was Cable.
His mother is Storm.
What the fuck?
Why?
I don't know. This issue, like, more again, also this one not drawn by Rob Liefeld, drawn by Brent Peoples. I mean, he's doing a Liefeld imitation as far as kind of the style and the cross-hatching faces and tube guns and everything, but it's not Liefeld. And even some of that, and you would never think this, but Liefeld has a pretty distinct style of layouts, and part of it is that
none of them.
well, yeah, part of it is that he's he often doesn't do backgrounds.
Yeah, I know.
And like the first issue of this, there was that stuff. And I think, especially this series initially, I was reading half ironically, if not 75% ironically. And so with irony and some implanted nostalgia and everything like that, I really liked seeing Rob Liefeld write, draw, ink an entire comic book with this ridiculous Deadpool knockoff. But now it's just boring. It's unintelligible. There's one issue left. At this point, I really should read it since it's only one issue left. But
I'm making you read it. You have to read it out. There's no way you're getting 5 out of 6 and not reading 6.
But that would be the greatest thing to do.
No, the greatest thing to do would be call out DC and tell them why they're going to fail and then quit Twitter.
Yes. And reveal a planned Image crossover.
Yeah.
Okay, we have one more book. Take us home.
All right. So, last book we have here is Silver Surfer Black #1, written by Donny Cates, drawn by Tradd Moore.
Yep.
And we open up. I would say, in terms of art, this is probably my favorite issue of the week. I really like this art style. It's just really cool. I think it fits the character and the book perfectly. So we kind of just get a breakdown of who Silver Surfer is. The second page, or I guess pages 2 and 3, were really cool. How he's talking about how he watched as Galactus destroyed all these planets and did nothing, and he continued to do nothing. And then now all of a sudden he decides he needs to do something. And there's a lot of guilt and remorse with him doing that. So the next page we pick up to Silver Surfer getting thrown through this, I guess, void with the rest of these Guardians of the Galaxy. So this is spinning off of Donny Cates' Guardians of the Galaxy run, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Thanos is dead apparently. Black Order ambushed them and kind of sent them through this, and Silver Surfer helps them get out of this void. And I think he ends up going somewhere else while they all go through this other area. And he ends. We get a lot of really interesting laid out panels. Just him talking about. It's a lot of abstract stuff just going through, and there's one shot of him like all like wrinkled up and shit, which I think is really cool looking. And then he ends up on this planet, and he's trying to, I guess, he's just trying to get back to where he needs to go. And these 3, big guardian creatures are standing outside this door, and they basically start fucking with him. And we get a giant fight of him fighting against them, and yeah, all he wants to do, I guess, is just get back to where he needs to go, and they're just giving him all this shit. And he basically uses his board to kind of end the fight. And what else? At the end, we end up finding that he is captured by Null, who has a Venom like symbiote logo on his chest. What?
It's like the Venom God from his Venom run, from Donny Cates' Venom run.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, Vince. I know this is your pick of the week, so if you wanted to comment more about this issue or anything else that you noticed, but I really like this issue.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, the art is amazing, and even within Tradd Moore, there's so many different styles and techniques and everything within this issue. Like in particular, there's a point where, because initially he doesn't have his board, and so he recreates this board, and I like that page because, like, it's very reminiscent of like how you would, if you were in the actual ocean, how you would go up to a surfboard and try and like mount on it, and then how you would actually sit on a surfboard. And he's just doing that in space because he's a surfer in space, because Jack Kirby is this insane creative guy who
Mhm.
made a cosmic surfer. And the fight with those like goddesses is really damn cool. I really love this issue, like every single inch of it, except the final page. It kind of annoys me. Just because I haven't read most of it. I read the first like 1 or 2 issues, but I don't really like some of the ideas that Cates is doing in Venom. Kind of removing it more and more from Spider-Man and doing this God stuff and dragon wings and whatever shit. But it's still, art is just amazing. I think Donny Cates does a very good job of doing that like introspective, philosophical surfer narration. It seems, and I haven't read all of Donny Cates' work, but comparing, actually my sample size is pretty small, but it's like the very first few issues of Venom and his Doctor Strange run. I guess that's kind of mostly it.
Say, you haven't read Guardians and you haven't read Cosmic Ghost Rider?
No. Well, I read the first issue of Cosmic Ghost Rider.
Okay.
And I haven't read Thanos, but I feel like this Silver Surfer writing is very different from Cates' other work, but it also kind of fits with it. I mean, he's clearly making this different than his other books, which that's what a good writer does. This was great. And also it's very different from the last major Silver Surfer stuff, which was Dan Slott's stuff, which was kind of more adventure of the week, whereas this one clearly is going to be a little bit more of the Stan Lee philosophical as well as some like Starland psychedelia.
Well, there's only 5 issues here too, so
yeah, unfortunately. And
I mean, I could see this getting a sequel though, and the fact that it's already onto a second printing next week, possibly a good indication of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would love if this expanded into an ongoing. Part of the thing is that I don't, as you can imagine, Trad Moore, not the fastest artist, so I don't know if they could necessarily make this a monthly title.
Well, that would also be Donny Cates' 3rd ongoing title.
Yeah. And so in the back, there's a pretty sizable letter from Donny Cates. He explains how, and I actually knew, I'm pretty sure, everything in here, but it's great that they put, from interviews and stuff, but it's great that they put this on paper in this issue. He went to school with Jeff Shaw and Trad Moore. Well, he went to art school with them, and now works with both of them at Marvel, because Jeff Shaw, that was his Thanos run and is now his Guardians artist. And this is Trad Moore. And he wrote this script initially, was basically 100% finished it, and then found out that Stan Lee had passed away. And so he deleted the entire script and restarted from scratch because he really wanted to deliver a great Silver Surfer story, and one kind of in that vein. And then he also tells the story about the first time he met Stan Lee. It was at a San Diego Comic-Con, and he says he was a kid, but who knows what that means. And he got his X-Men #1 signed. I wonder if he still has that. Worth one.
I think he probably does.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if he was really a kid and when that was. I mean, he could have sold that when he was like.
Well, he puts in quotations in the letter, "Yeah, be jealous, it's rad." So that, to me, at least implies that he still has it probably hanging on a wall somewhere.
Yeah. This issue was great. I'm hoping Noel doesn't become the full 5 issues or the full 4 issues left. We'll see.
I mean, I also absolutely loved it. I can't talk about Trad Moore's work more than you guys already did, but that's what happens when you're the third man that gives their opinions on the books. But I could say coloring also absolutely out of this world. It is always welcome to me when you have a book that's so lusciously filled with color that brings everything more to life around it. And on a book like this, it absolutely insane. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what the next 4 issues bring. This book was hyped up the moment it was announced, as like we kept getting teasers and like art previews. So I'm just happy to see it very delivered. And like I said, absolute smash hit because it's getting a second printing next week. It's not like a couple weeks now. Like the very next week, the second printing for this will be out.
Yeah, just to quickly note, colorist is Dave Stewart, one of the best.
Yeah.
And I also want to note for anyone watching and the co-hosts, whatever, Trad Moore. If you want to check out more Trad Moore art, you can check out the series Luther Strode, which he did with Justin Jordan. It's an indie book, and it's like crazy over the top action.
Yeah,
And
I've never read Luther Strode, but I've always been kind of wowed by the art there.
He also did the introduction of Robbie Ray as Ghost Rider.
Okay.
So thanks for watching this episode. Talked about some great books. I think it was a strong week overall.
Yeah, it was a really strong week. And I guess as on the sign off here, we'll be in Philly this week, so I'm sure we'll have stuff to bring back from Wizard World. I'm looking forward to that. But also next week, Vince, the wait's over. Superman Year One from Frank Miller, 64 pages next week. Are you excited?
Yes.
I'm very excited.
Yeah, actually sounds really cool.
Check out what we think and stay safe.